So for the whole of the tractate of Taanit, for the whole of the tractate of fasts, we've been talking about fasts which are triggered by something going on in the rest of the world, the calamity, on some calamity that is affecting the public. So until now, the fasts are reactions to real life, real time events. And the way the Rambam explains it is that the fasting incentivizes or reminds us to repent, and then whatever is happening will be fixed. That's the Rambam, and that is the beginning. That is 90% of the Mishnah of Taanit. And now, as we head into the end, we're in the last three Mishnayot of Taanit, and we'll cover two of those today. And then I hope we'll finish the Masechet tomorrow. As we head into the last three Mishnayot of Taanit, suddenly we start to learn about the days that we call fast days today. In other words, the fast days that aren't reacting to something going on in the present, but fast days that are recalling the errors or accidents or sins or disasters of the past. And we're going to begin with the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av. Chamisha devarim eru et avotenu b'shiva asar b'Tammuz v'chamisha b'tisha b'Av. 5 things happened to our ancestors on the 17th of Tammuz and 5 on the 9th of Av. So we are still, by the way, in the language or in the spirit of calamities that come onto the public. So we're still consistent, if you like, with the Rambam and his view that fasting is a reaction to what happens out in the world. It's not a ritual. It's not some kind of ceremony we go through for the sake of it. It's a reaction to what's going on. But these two fasts are delayed reactions to things that happened in the past, but things that really happened. So what are these things? V'shiva asar b'Tammuz nishbaru haluchot. On the 17th of Tammuz, the tablets were shattered. This is 40 days after the giving of the Torah. The Shavuot is on the 3rd of Sivan, and then Moshe goes up on the mountain, I think on the 6th or the 7th of, let's say he goes up on the 3rd day, 6th or 7th of Sivan, and he stays there for 40 days. So 40 days brings us from the 7th of Sivan to the 17th of Tammuz. And that is when the golden calf, that's when the people made the golden calf, and Moshe comes down and he shatters the tablets. And this shattering seems to trigger a pattern that will then trigger off a set of kind of bad luck events in future years. So the Mishnah continues. The tablets were shattered. Uvatal hatamid. The tamid offering stopped. It's not clear whether this is in the time of the Roman siege or the Babylonian siege, but at a certain point in the siege, the temple is going to be destroyed on the 9th of Av, 3 weeks later. But at a certain point, 3 weeks before the destruction, there are no longer animals sufficient to carry out the daily sacrifice. The daily sacrifice stops. If you like, this is the kind of the beating heart of the religious life of the city that stops. The city was breached. And the Gemara is not sure whether we're talking about the first or the second, the first or the second temple. There is a source actually in the Tanakh suggesting that the walls were breached on the 9th. The walls were breached on the 9th of Tammuz. It's from Tanakh. So we're talking now about the Babylonian conquest. So maybe this refers to the Roman conquest. The city was breached on the 17th of Tammuz. V'saraf apostomus et Torah v'hemid tselem b'hechal. And Apostomus burnt the Torah. This is a reference to a Greek king, and placed an idol in the temple. Perhaps this is Apostomus as well. There's a suggestion in the Gemara, this is Menashe. And the Gemara has a view. Menashe was one of the evil kings right before the Babylonian destruction. And there's an idea in the Gemara that Jerusalem was actually destroyed because of Menashe. He filled the city of Jerusalem with blood from one end to the other. And there's a suggestion in the Gemara that he also placed an idol in the temple. So perhaps this is Menashe, perhaps this is a Greek tyrant at the time of, just before the time of the Romans. That's the 17th of Tammuz. Perhaps the idol in the temple reflects the golden calf. Perhaps the last event, the idol in the temple, reflects the first one. The tablets are shattered because of the creation of the golden calf. So these events begin with idolatry and they end with idolatry. The events of the 9th of Av begin and end with exile. B'Tisha B'Av, we're going to have 5 things now. On the 9th of Av, we'll have 5 things. B'Tisha B'Av, Nigzar Avotenu Shelo Yikantzu La'aretz. On the 9th of Av, it was decreed that our ancestors should not enter the land. And the Gemara goes through a much more complicated set of calendar calculations to come to that conclusion, much more complicated than the 40 days from the 7th of Sivan to the 17th of Tammuz, much more complicated than that. But there's a remark in the Gemara, actually in Taanit. Uchti vatisa kol ha'ida vayitnu et kolam vayivku ha'am balayla hahu. And it's written, and this is from Numbers, from the Sefer Bamidbar. This is right after the spies come back with the bad report of the land. The people lifted up their voice and cried, and they wept all that night. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Oto halayla leil Tisha B'Av haya. That night was the night of the 9th of Av. Amar lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God said to them, Atem b'chitem b'chiyah shel chinam. You wept needlessly. There was no need to weep because of a fear about going into the land. No need for that. V'ani kovea lachem b'chiyah l'dorot. I will establish for you weeping in future generations. And that's the theme that links together these 5 events on Tisha B'Av, as if this initial failure of courage, failure of nerve, failure of determination to enter into the land, or perhaps failure to establish sufficient connection to the land, then leads to a disconnection from the land in future generations. And so the story goes on. V'charav habayit barishona uvashniya. So the temple was destroyed the first and the second time. Venilkada Beitar. Beitar was a city in kind of in the middle of the land of Israel, and we're now talking not about the destruction by the Romans in the year 70, but about the Jewish revolt in the year 125. So this is now the time of Rabbi Akiva. So the Romans, they destroyed Jerusalem in the year 70, but they don't really destroy the land of Israel for another 55 years until the revolt of Bar Kokhba. And it's at that point that Beitar is destroyed. The land of Israel is completely destroyed. Thousands, tens of thousands of people are killed. This really was the Shoah of their generation. The complete destruction of the land. This is when the rabbis moved from Yavne up north to take refuge in the Galil. The capture of Beitar really symbolizes the destruction of the Jewish people in their own land, much more so than the destruction of the temple. Ve'nechrusha ha'ir, and the city was plowed over. I think this was also after the second revolt, but I'm not sure. And then the Mishnah concludes, Mishenichnas Av Mumatim b'simcha. When Av enters, we reduce our rejoicing. Very interesting, by the way, that the Mishnah here is not going to refer to the 3 weeks. Today we reduce rejoicing during the 3 weeks between the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av, but the Mishnah just talks about when Av enters, the 9 days. And the Mishnah will then go to continue just talking a little bit about that period. Shabbat Shechal Tisha B'Av, Liot B'tocha, during the week when the 9th of Av falls, Asurim mi l'saper u'mi l'chabes v'chamisha mutarim mipnei chvod haShabbat. During the week in which the 9th of Av falls, it's forbidden to cut hair and to wash clothes. So this is like well, it's like Chol HaMoed, but it's really like mourning. This is really like mourning. But on Thursday, it's okay to do it in honor of Shabbat. So we've talked before about the fact that the fasts are kind of lifted. You know, the shutting of the shops, which is obligatory on fast days, is lifted on Thursdays so people can buy for Shabbat. And this Mishnah must refer to a time when Tisha B'Av fell on a Friday, because it's only forbidden to cut hair and to wash clothes until Tisha B'Av. So if we're relaxing the restrictions on a Thursday, Tisha B'Av must be falling on a Friday. Now, in our calendar today, Tisha B'Av cannot fall on a Friday. We don't have a fast day before Shabbat. But in the time of the Mishnah, if the calendar was set by the witnesses seeing the new moon, then of course it could fall on unusual days. So on this occasion, it seems to be falling on Friday. And on Thursday afternoon, so before the fast on Thursday afternoon, we're going to let people cut their hair and wash clothes so that when the fast goes out, they're going to be ready for Shabbat. Erev Tisha B'Av. This again would be on Thursday afternoon, but anyway, the afternoon before Tisha B'Av. Lo yochal adam shnei tavshilin. A person shouldn't eat 2 cooked dishes. The Bartanura explains here that we're talking about food that needs to be cooked. So, you know, I don't know, meat, something you can't eat when it's raw, meat or fish or baking bread. Lo yachal basar, although lo yachal basar velo yishte yain, but one shouldn't eat meat or drink wine. So these will be actually cooked vegetables, not cooked meat. And the Bartanura explains that if there's something like, I don't know, milk, which you can drink raw, there's no problem about heating it up and cooking it. We're really talking about real cooking here to prepare food that can't be eaten raw. And Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is going to disagree. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Yishaneh. Shimon ben Gamliel says one should just make a change. And again, we've seen that the house of Rabbi Gamliel is very often kind of easy on their own comfort. So they say, look, you know, if you're used to eating 4 dishes on a regular day, you can eat 2 on Erev Tisha B'Av. If you're used to having 2 kinds of wine, you can have 1 kind of wine. In other words, you just want to make a little change from your normal practice. And it won't surprise us to know the halacha does not follow Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Rabbi Yehuda b'chayev b'chfiat hamita. Rabbi Yehuda obligated turning over the bed. When we learned the Mishnah of Moed Katan, we learned that one of the signs of mourning was that you would turn the beds over. Then you'd sit on effectively you'd sit on a low couch which had been turned over. And we're in the world of mourning. So Rabbi Yehuda is going to obligate turning over the bed just as a mourner would do. The lo hodu lo chachamim, but the sages did not agree with him.